You know, a good reminder from Genesis chapter 1, verse 3 is God always pierces the darkness, always. And the darkness doesn't last.
And the high priest, the great high priest who is Jesus Christ, he puts his hands on your life and you take your hands off and you say, my life is surrendered for your purposes.
Want to welcome everybody back to another episode of the Downline Podcast. My name is Jamie Trussell. I have the privilege of hosting this for Downline and the joy of serving as a lead pastor of Redeemer Dripping Springs in the Austin area. We hope this podcast helps you faithfully walk with Jesus while pouring your life into others. And today I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. Al Mohler to the show. Dr. Mohler, thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be with you, Jamie.
I do think most of our audience will be familiar with you, but for those that aren't, you're an author, speaker, president of the Southern Baptist Seminary, host of The Briefing, which I think a lot of our audience will be familiar with. What else would be good for our folks to know about what makes you you?
Wow. Well, I will tell you, I am married to Mary, and we have 2 children and 4 unbelievably precious grandchildren, including a baby right now. So
congrats.
yeah, just they're so much fun. 10, 7, 5, and a few months.
Okay. Are they in Louisville there with you? Are they local?
They're in Washington, D.C.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I know why the Lord has them there. So, but we love every minute we can have with them.
Where are you originally from?
I'm a Floridian, and by the way, like a multi-generational Floridian. There aren't that many of us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was born in Central Florida, went to high school in South Florida.
Okay. And then how did you go straight from Florida to Louisville, or what was kind of
No,
your
I went to college at Samford University in Birmingham.
Hey, I'm from Auburn. Come on.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So went to my college years were in Alabama. And that's where I married, where I met my wife there at Samford. Married my roommate's sister. How's that?
How about that? Way to go.
Yeah.
It's a great choice of roommate right there.
Well, led to great things. Let me put it that way.
Okay. All right. Before we kind of jump into you helping us think through some of these more current event things, and I do think, right, so as our people, our downline community, are discipling others, and our office as Christ followers, right? There's the whole men of Issachar, understanding our times and knowing what Israel should do or knowing what the church should do if we wanted to kind of modernize that application, which I'm so thankful for your ministry in that direction. I was curious, how did the briefing birth? And kind of part 2 is, can you give me a quick walkthrough of like, what does it actually take to put one episode of that together? I've always wanted to know. It seems it'd have to be pretty extensive.
Yeah. Well, no, I appreciate the question. So I was approached by a radio network about doing a live national radio program.
Okay.
And eventually it became a program on the Salem Radio Network, weekday drive time, afternoon, Monday through Friday. That became it was a real opportunity. I'm very, very thankful for it. In that program, what I did at the beginning of the program was to set out what is now the briefing.
Okay.
In other words, I went at what were some of the most important things we needed to think about and talk about that day. Did Christian analysis of them, and then we also had a topic which is generally out of one of those issues. We spent the rest of the time, but the advent of podcasting presented a whole new opportunity. I wasn't sure it was going to work. I got in on podcasting really early.
Yep.
But I travel all over the world, and a daily. I did that program at times from France or wherever I was in the world.
Yeah.
And the timing was just horrific.
Yeah.
So podcasting was a new opportunity. And I liked it on both ends. Obviously, I have to have it done, a daily podcast. I have to have the briefing done by 3:00 a.m. Monday through Friday in the morning. But I can do it from anywhere in the world.
Right.
And I can frankly record at different times, just given travel and all the rest. So that's why. And I took that top section, which is what listeners told me they found the greatest value in. They said, I just love that thing you do in a review, which was about 20 minutes, and it's just a little bit longer now, but that's basically what I'm doing. So you ask a nice, kind question, where's it come from? It comes from the experience of doing a live national radio program and taking what seemed to be the best part of that, and turning it into a podcast.
Well, so are you I mean, with it being daily, and it is expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm marveling you touch on from Michael Jackson to California mayors to Iran to I mean, it is it is expansive in its breadth, but, I mean, are you all is it running through your mind all day? We need to talk about this,
All the time.
all the time?
All the time. And as you know, I have a very full life
Yeah.
with other
Ev
responsibilities, but the briefing's on my mind all the time. I'm collecting stuff all the time. I go through an enormous amount of material just in terms of my own personal review of these things. And I am surrounded by paper all the time. I have to work with paper. So
Sure.
obviously you can do some things online, but if I'm going to talk about it, I need it. I need it where I can mark it up on paper. And so honestly, the studio looks very, very neat and clean, and they straighten it up so that I can do an event like this. There's paper all around me that will be back on the table.
That's
And
hysterical. I
yeah,
don't even wanna show you
yeah,
my home desk that I mean, it's got everything from, kids' leftover food to books, so it's a gambit of options.
that is to the glory of God. All I
It
can
is.
tell you is I love the desk and work area of a busy man. Yep.
There you go.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, so if it's a Monday and you got one
Yeah.
coming out on Tuesday, it's gotta be out by 3. Are you pulling
Yeah.
all-nighters? Are you trying to get it done by a certain time and get or do
No, I mean, because of travel and other variables, it can be any time. So, I mean, some nights every week, it's really late,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's barely done by 3 in the morning, especially when I'm traveling. If I'm on the West Coast, we're right up on the deadline sometimes. I have to go to bed after I do it.
Okay.
I can't wake up to do it. It has to be at the end of a process. It can't be the beginning of a process. And my energy level, I mean, to be honest, it's very much a part of who I am.
Mm,
And so my physiology is now a part of it. I can't wake up to do it.
okay.
But I can't sleep until it's done.
There you go. Okay.
And so that's kind of the way it works. And so if I can record earlier in the evening or the night, that's good.
Mhm.
Uh, but I will tell you, because I want it to be just as up to date as possible. There have been a lot of nights where we've thought it was done, and the next thing I know, at
Oh,
1 o'clock in the morning, we're back
there you go.
because something has happened. But hopefully we avoid that.
Well, I love it. I mean, I had it on in the gym this morning. It just because I don't have time for a ton of podcasts, but it's grounding for me because you have guys like Rogan, right, who are gonna bring on
Right.
forefront cultural things that are happening, but he's not thinking through it through the same worldview or lens, though he has some spiritual curiosity. One of the things, right, it's on Diary of a CEO, which is a big podcast, and Rogan,
Mhm.
is artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And I'm still looking for a really good guide to help me think through that. Like, I'm
Well, I've got a
43.
book. I've got a book coming out, so your problem solved.
Come on. How
Yeah.
providential is that? Okay, give me a
Yeah.
few minutes here though on the right, so I am born and raised Alabama, I'm 43, I got
Yep.
4 kids, I can't even put together a PowerPoint presentation, I've never had a Facebook account, I'm like
Right.
the Luddite of my age for some strange reason, and it's not that it terrifies me, it's that I'm more concerned about it being dehumanizing than I am it,
Absolutely.
uh so can you give me a few kinda parameters on how to evaluate? Like, is it okay to use ChatGPT? Should I avoid it? How do we process that?
Well, I think number one is the technology question, right? So, in other words, yeah, the human beings have always had certain questions about what's legitimate technology, what's
Right.
illegitimate technology. Which, by the way, it means that as Christians, we do think there's some illegitimate technologies. I mean,
Sure.
the secular world's not sure there are any.
Good.
We think there are some illegitimate technologies, and then there are many illegitimate uses of technology. You have an internet. Yes, you can quickly find out how to give an antidote for poison. You can also find the most degrading pornography.
Right. Sure.
So yeah, but technology comes as always as a challenge to Christians, and it's a stewardship question after it's a moral question.
Mm,
Christians were unsure about the computing revolution.
okay.
Just in terms of digitalization, Christians were concerned about the use of technology being dehumanizing simply by separating intelligence or data and analysis from human control. The internet, obviously, a huge challenge. AI is just the next thing, but it is a giant next thing.
It feels
Eh,
like the
yeah,
rapidity in which it can be incorporated, because I've heard it, I've heard it compared to the Industrial Revolution, and then I'm going, but this
right.
one, there's a pace to this that feels new.
Yes, and I think it is because there have been certain points of development that all along we knew were going to be absolutely crucial, and one is the development of true quantum computing, which is this massive multiplication of of computing power,
Okay.
and then the development of true artificial intelligence, which, by the way, it doesn't have a fixed definition, but basically it's emulating human functions but faster, more accurately, and seeing things humans might miss. So the greatest example of that would be the use of artificial intelligence and reading some, say, CAT scans, and they're able the
Yeah.
machine's able to find some patterns that humans might not get. The theological problem is twofold.
Okay.
Number one, it's generative AI. So in other words, it's not AI that's just assembling what is there because human beings have written all these pages and and produced all this, and AI is just
Okay.
sorting it. If it's generating something, that's a giant moral question for Christians.
Okay.
And then the second thing is if it is emulating human beings.
Okay.
And so you see this already where you have teenagers developing a relationship with
That's right.
a chatbot.
Right.
And then you also have some inside that movement, and many of whom, by the way, are just way out there in terms of worldview.
Mm,
And they're actually claiming that it has a consciousness,
that's right.
that AI can develop a consciousness. So I think those are the two big issues. The second one's bigger than the first, but generative AI is a big problem.
Mm,
But it's here. So in other words,
that's right.
it's not like that could happen. It's definitely here. In terms of the human emulation, that's just a massive problem.
Hmm.
And it's not just 15-year-old boys having a relationship with a chatbot. It's not just that. You've got the case where you now have a lawsuit coming out of the mass shooting at Florida State University, in
That's
which
right.
we're told that,
Yeah.
there was active uh, advice sought, by the shooter in the conducting of that mass crime. You also have, of course, all the sexual and perverse ramifications of this, and just the horrible misconstruction of what a relationship is. Like,
Yep.
so, I have people who tell me the big problem is when you develop a relationship. I'll say, well, number one, you do not have one.
You can't. That's right. That's
You,
exactly
you
right.
do not have a relationship. You have to use a Latin term, you have a simulacrum of a relationship. You have the illusion of a relationship. The machine does not have a relationship with you.
Correct. And I've wondered, I can move. There's so many topics I want to talk to
Yeah.
you about, but I wanted to ask this. I don't know if it's true. It seems biblically true and theologically true that just humanly considered, it feels like the process of arriving is equally, at least, as important as what we arrive at. And if AI removes so much of the process, it's almost like product becomes the chief reality. And so, like, am I in the
Well, how do you
process?
know a student knows anything?
Well, yeah, yeah, exactly.
I mean, so you have Princeton University. The day we're talking, Princeton University this morning is having to work on putting proctors back in the classroom because they're afraid that they don't have a clue how to give an exam in an age of AI.
Mm.
So they had to put human proctors back in the classroom, which they took out, I think, in 1899.
Oh my goodness.
And they're going to have to put it back in. And so, in other words, you now have to have a human being determine if non-humans are actually answering the questions to the exam.
I did not
That's
know
just
that.
one indication, I think, of what you're talking about.
Okay, let me pivot with you because this is right. The conflict in Iran's been in the news for what, 2 months, 2.5 months now. And
Yeah.
I know, and look, people listening to the show are going to have differing opinions and conclusions on Israel and the secular state of Israel versus a dispensational viewpoint. So let's setting that aside. Let's just think through the current conflict
Yeah.
and our engagement in international diplomacy. What are some really helpful ways and maybe unhelpful ways as Christ followers to process that?
Well, we live in a fallen world in which malevolent actors have the advantage. And that's something that we often as Christians don't adequately think about. And foreign policy, this is a part of what's known as realism, the school of realism. We live in a dangerous world.
Yep.
And bad actors have the initiative. Bad actors have the advantage. And so that's one of the reasons why the United States has this massive defense system, because you just don't know where mayhem's going to appear anywhere. And so if you understand that bad actors have the advantage, that explains to you why Iran, which has, it really has seen most of its Air Force destroyed, most of its Navy destroyed, still has missile and drone capacity. They're able to shut down the Strait of Hormuz.
That's right.
It's because the agent of malevolence has the advantage. It's harder to keep it from closing down than it is to close it down. And this is asymmetry. And so, the United States is out there with all these destroyers, aircraft carriers, and all the rest, but drones that cost a fraction of a single missile. I mean, a fraction of a single missile can all of a sudden deliver, a very deadly shutdown. And by the way, the United States Navy is not going to put $1 billion, aircraft carrier at risk of something like that. So again, the bad actor has the advantage. And by the way, the bank robber has the advantage over the bank. The robber has the advantage because he knows he's about to do this. The bank doesn't know he's about to do this.
That's a good point. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So all I'm saying is this is just kind of the same thing playing out. But this one also has an ideological tinge to it because we're talking about an Islamic, extremist regime, which has a worldview in which it simply doesn't care about the things America has to care about.
And
in terms of moral principles, in terms of protecting even its own people. The United States can't. So let me put it this way. It's not even clear the American people will put up with inflation for long. It's not clear the American people will put up with $5 gasoline for long.
It's a great.
In Iran, they're willing to have their own people slain. It's an unequal political system because we have accountability here. I mean, President Trump could be confronted with 8 different polls a day. They don't take polls in Iran.
They don't take polls. That's a great point.
A pollster not going to live very long. And so that asymmetry is something we have to understand here. It comes down to something Thomas Jefferson had to learn when he was president, and that is the pirates have the advantage.
Well, and this is it's a rough transition, but maybe a transition to still talk about government, but in a much different light. So North Ireland and Finland have both recently arrested someone for either preaching the Bible or teaching a truth, right? A biblical truth and component. Is that a trend you think that's going to jump the pond and settle over here? Or, is this religious persecution? You find lots of opinions all around this. What should we take from kind of these recent happenings in Western Europe?
Well, I think several things. Number one, the secular age hates the preaching of the gospel, period. So, because it is the greatest threat to a secular age. Yeah, right. And everything, like the preaching of the gospel was the greatest threat to the Roman Empire.
Right.
At least, during the New Testament period. And so it was understood that way. And it was understood as subversive. If you are making totalitarian claims, guess what? Jesus Christ is Lord is a direct confrontation with that.
Right.
And so you have Pavi Razanen, for instance, and others who have been persecuted for a simple testimony to biblical truth and a simple testimony to Jesus Christ. And so one of the things I would note is that many European countries lack clear religious liberty protections. And here's the thing. In the case of and you take Finland, for example, you just take what's going on. You have rival claims, and those rival claims are here in the United States. The rival claim would be LGBTQ ideology versus Christianity.
Okay.
And by the way, on American college campuses, just look at what's happened with this cancel culture and the shutdown of Christian speakers or conservative speakers on campuses because you violate the LGBTQ orthodoxy.
Good point.
That's exactly what has happened in almost all these situations. It's not because someone just says, I don't want the preaching of the gospel. It's where they say that's a hate crime.
Yep.
You violated the personhood of someone here. You made a moral judgment that is harmful to people. Harm. And so that's really what's going on. In the United States, we have several things going for us. I don't take any of these for granted, but I
Okay.
am thankful for them at this point. Number one, we have the explicit language of the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution.
Right.
And so at this point, it is interesting to note that even in some liberal courts, they simply have to recognize this is the First Amendment. You also have a conservative majority on the Supreme Court that is correcting much of the very erroneous jurisprudence that the court exercised in 1950s, 60s, and 70s. You also have the American people who basically still are overwhelmingly supportive of religious liberty claims when they understand what's at stake.
Right.
And so that's still something I don't count on that lasting forever, but I'm thankful for it. And so this is also something else, and that is in the United States, you now have groups such as the Alliance Defending Freedom, ADF, the Beckett Fund. You also have, I'll tell you, just before having this conversation, I'm talking about a communication I received today from the Attorney General of the state. We still have, especially in a lot of conservative states, we still have attorneys general who are pressing these cases hard and know exactly what they're doing. And we still in national elections. I mean, quite honestly, we have an administration right now that's far more sensitive to these claims after an administration that wasn't.
Yeah.
So elections make a difference.
No,
I should probably stop there.
All right, I'll let you stop there, and I'm going to ask
Yeah.
you a fun one, and we
Okay.
can talk about it or not. But I used to be so dismissive of this, and to be candid, I still am in my heart of
Uh-oh.
hearts. But
I'm worried about where we're going. You go ahead.
well, let me tell you where we're going is I cannot cut on popular podcasts today, and they're not raging about UFOs. It's like settled in the public mind that we are not alone, right? And then I'm hearing Christian podcast guests even claiming the same thing. And so I need you to help us settle this UFO debate for good right here and right now.
I'm simply going to tell you that UFOs exist.
Okay.
I know this. I'm absolutely certain of it. I do want to remind you what UFO stands for, which is unidentified flying object.
That's right.
So I want to affirm there are flying objects we cannot identify. And I think the release of even more data on this, even going back to space missions, has been really, really interesting. I will simply tell you, nothing in all of this threatens a biblical worldview.
See, I agree with that for sure.
It doesn't threaten the biblical worldview. But we do have to understand that what the biblical worldview makes very clear is that the purpose of the entire cosmos is to declare the glory of God and to draw attention to the atoning work accomplished by the Lord Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm absolutely certain that nothing incompatible with that will ever be found. I also don't really think there's any adequate evidence whatsoever that there's any conscious life outside of planet Earth. If there is such a thing, it will be consistent with what God's revealed in His Word. But I will simply tell you, there is plenty of variability and uncertainty given stuff going on planet Earth that I think it's likely that what's unidentified is most importantly just until now unidentified. I'd be fascinated to know how much of it could be identified.
Sure. Well, I mean, I love your point on that, but I do think in just the general public mind, and a UFO actually equates to conscious life outside of Earth, right? It's an immediate one-to-one correlation. And just in pastoral ministry, I've known a couple guys really walk away from the faith because of UFO research, because in their mind, it calls into question everything you read in Genesis. And the reality is it doesn't.
It doesn't. It doesn't. As a matter of fact, we're told of mysteries. Even forget outer space for a moment. Forget outer space. Just think Mariana Trench.
Okay.
The trench in the middle of the Pacific that's so deep.
Right.
Modern science will have to admit it knows very, 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 very little of what's in that trench.
Okay.
And that's not in outer space. That's here on planet Earth.
That's a good point.
It is. You have biologists who are very much convinced that there are probably species that we have no knowledge of in the depths of the ocean, so far beyond. So, in other words, outer space, I mean, there's no telling what we're going to find. We have no idea what we're going to find here on planet Earth, and in particular in the depths of the sea. So all I want to say is, the scripture talks about Leviathan in the deep and all the wonders. So I'm not going to be, will I be surprised? I got to watch myself. I said, I won't be surprised. Yeah, I think I could be surprised by things, but there is nothing I would say to someone who's about to walk away from the faith because of UFOs. My goodness. Number one, you're walking away from the faith based upon something that's unidentified. I mean, this just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
That's a great point. Yeah. It's a great point. Well, I heard one guy talking the other day that, one of Ezekiel's visions, if you read it, is him actually seeing a UFO, right? Because there's a circle within a circle, and it's
He saw wonders in the skies.
that's right.
I'm not. I can't interrogate him, but I can simply say, what he saw from this comes down eventually to the glory of God, and that's where I'm going to leave it.
And I think it's a great place to leave it. Let me a little bit open-ended on this. What are maybe some things that they're not making big headlines now, but we should be paying attention to them, but maybe we're not? Some trends, maybe some upcoming decisions, maybe some things you could help us go, hey, pay attention to this because it's more impactful than you might realize.
Yeah, I would say for Christians, a couple of things. Number one, the redefinition of marriage isn't over. And so one of the things to watch right now is how much is going on in courts and in communities in terms of recognizing polyamory or alternative family structures.
Okay.
That basically means the end of the family and the end of marriage as a legal category. Now, it doesn't mean that for Christians, marriage is redefined. It does mean that for the culture, the confusion just gets deeper and deeper.
Okay.
And I think we need to be very much concerned about that. But we should also understand that once you say marriage no longer has to be the union of a man and a woman, it could mean a man and a man, whatever. Well, you've just opened the door to it meaning anything. And by the way, that's what it will mean, anything.
Yep.
I think some real anti-human developments in technology, and it's not just AI. AI you mentioned is the most graphic, but we're really talking about applications of this. Like autonomous vehicles and all the rest. That's not a small thing. That's going to redefine much more than people think. And how long is it until we have autonomous ovens and autonomous? In other words,
sure.
The separation of human beings from stuff is a big problem.
Yep. Well, what are the implications of that in our last kind of 3 minutes? When we divorce ourselves from the dignity of being involved in the process of creating things versus those things kind of doing it all for me. Some of the, cultural, more secular thinkers, they make this argument. It's going to be great because it's going to let us actually engage in more human activity. And I'm going, but there's nothing in human history.
What's more human?
Yeah. Exactly.
Is pickleball more human than cabinetry?
Yeah. And this is the question.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And there seems to be, they actually have a working idea of what it means to be human, which is interesting, right? And where does that come from in the secular reality?
Yeah, and I will tell you, there's an aspect to this most Christians don't think about, and that's the commercial aspect. Somebody's going to be making tons of money. Unbelievable amounts of money off of all of this.
Yes.
And so they want you to have more time so that you can spend more time on your phone.
That's exactly right.
They want you to have more time so that you'll have more time to consume their entertainment products and all the rest. So in other words, none of this is morally neutral. It's not like all of a sudden you're going to have people who are engaged in some kind of innocent activity all day long. No, they have a plan for your time. They have a plan for your money. They have a plan for your children too.
And well, it's interesting how quickly Sam Altman has done a 180 on his original opinion on AI versus now.
We really don't even know. Like I say, I'm writing about this right now. I'm deep into all this. I don't know that any of them are speaking the truth. Because Sam Altman's also one of the guys who said, stop us before we heard again. In other words, there were times in which he actually joined statements saying, we just need to stop this. It's too dangerous.
Yep.
By the way, I'm going to be offering an independent public offering in which I can make billions of dollars.
That's exactly right.
Stop me until I make billions more.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Mohler, I'm going to let you out of here on that. I'm so thankful for your time and spending it with us on the Download podcast.
It's been a fun conversation. God bless you, Jamie.
We thank you for listening to this episode of the Download podcast. Please subscribe, give us 5 stars, help us to get this content out to as many people as possible as we continue to partner with men and women in the Great Commission as we seek to make disciples as a lifestyle for a lifetime.